What if one of the body's most interesting repair signals has been hiding in plain sight? Because when tissue is injured, healing isn't simply a matter of building replacement tissue. Cells have to recognize the injury, move into the damaged area, reorganize the structural scaffolding around them, form new blood vessels, regulate inflammation, and begin reconstruction. And here's what's fascinating. One naturally occurring peptide appears to participate in several of those processes. It's called Thymosin Beta-4. Once scientists began understanding what Thymosin Beta-4 actually does inside the body, a much bigger question emerged. If the body already uses this peptide as part of its own repair system, could we somehow harness that signal to improve recovery? That's the scientific idea that eventually helped generate enormous interest in Thymosin Beta-4 and in products commonly marketed as TB-500. So today we're going to separate the really interesting biology from the marketing, because there is legitimate science here. And the story is actually pretty remarkable. If that sounds interesting, let's dive in. To understand Thymosin Beta-4, we need to talk about actin. Actin is one of the major structural proteins inside our cells. Think of it as part of the internal framework that allows cells to maintain their shape, change shape, and, very importantly, move. Thymosin Beta-4 binds to a form of actin called G-actin and helps regulate how actin is assembled and disassembled. That sounds like molecular trivia until you realize what cell movement means during an injury. A wound doesn't repair itself because cells conveniently appear exactly where they're needed. They have to migrate there. Cells involved in blood vessel formation, connective tissue repair, immune regulation, and epithelial healing must move toward damaged tissue. So anything participating in the regulation of cellular movement becomes scientifically very interesting when we're talking about tissue repair. That's why I sometimes describe Thymosin Beta-4 as a fascinating repair signal. Not because it's some magical tissue glue, but because it participates in fundamental biological processes that repair depends upon. Researchers have therefore investigated Thymosin Beta-4 in a surprisingly broad collection of experimental models. There has been work looking at wound closure. There has been research involving blood vessel formation or angiogenesis. There have been corneal healing models. There have been cardiac injury models. And there has also been considerable interest in inflammation and musculoskeletal repair. Now here's where we have to be scientifically disciplined. A promising preclinical finding is not the same thing as demonstrating that an injection reliably heals a human tendon. Those are two very different levels of evidence. But the preclinical findings are exactly what made Thymosin Beta-4 scientifically compelling in the first place. One of the particularly intriguing areas involves blood vessels. Repairing tissue requires oxygen and nutrients, which means damaged tissue frequently needs restoration or expansion of its blood supply. Experimental work has suggested that Thymosin Beta-4 can participate in pathways associated with angiogenesis and cellular migration. Likewise, researchers studying the cornea have investigated whether this peptide may influence epithelial repair and inflammatory responses. And cardiac researchers became interested because heart injury creates an enormous challenge. Damaged myocardium has relatively limited regenerative capacity. Again, this does not mean Thymosin Beta-4 regenerates the human heart. It means researchers saw enough biological activity to justify asking some very ambitious questions. And that's exactly how science should work. Now we need to make an extremely important distinction. Thymosin Beta-4 and everything sold under the name TB-500 should not automatically be treated as interchangeable. Full-length naturally occurring Thymosin Beta-4 is a defined biological peptide. Investigational pharmaceutical preparations studied under controlled conditions are defined products. But the term TB-500 has also been used commercially for products whose exact composition, peptide sequence, purity, formulation, and manufacturing controls may differ. So when somebody says, there's research on Thymosin Beta-4, therefore this vial labeled TB-500 has been proven to produce the same outcome, that's too large of a leap. That's an important translational question. What exactly is the substance? Is it the same molecular entity? Is it stable? Is it sterile? Does it reach the relevant tissue? And does the biological activity observed in a laboratory translate into an actual clinical outcome in a person? Those questions matter. This is also where human research becomes really important. There has been legitimate clinical development involving Thymosin Beta-4 preparations, but the human evidence is far smaller than the enormous online enthusiasm surrounding TB-500 would suggest. And we simply do not have strong clinical trials proving many of the claims you hear online. Things like dramatically accelerating tendon healing, rebuilding cartilage, regenerating organs, or producing extraordinary athletic recovery. That doesn't mean the biology isn't interesting. It means we've reached the classic gap between biological plausibility and clinical proof. And that is one of the most interesting places in medicine, because now we know what the next experiment needs to be. We need a standardized molecule, a known formulation, a defined indication, a meaningful endpoint, and a properly controlled human trial. Product quality also matters enormously with peptides because a label alone does not establish identity, concentration, sterility, or purity. So if you're considering any peptide therapy under medical supervision, some of the smartest questions are actually very basic ones. What exact molecule am I receiving? Where was it manufactured? How was identity and purity verified? Is the proposed benefit actually supported by human research? Or are we extrapolating from animals or cells? What outcome are we trying to improve? And how are we going to determine whether it's actually working? Those questions are not anti-peptide. They're how we turn interesting peptide biology into responsible medicine. So here's my takeaway. Thymosin Beta-4 isn't interesting because the internet decided to call something a recovery peptide. It's interesting because the body itself appears to use Thymosin Beta-4 in an elegant network involving cell migration, actin regulation, inflammation, vascular biology, and tissue repair. That biology is genuinely impressive. The scientifically exciting question is whether we can translate that natural repair signal into a reproducible medical treatment. And right now, determining whether a specific TB-500 product can reproduce those benefits safely in patients remains the unanswered clinical question. That's a much more interesting conclusion than either extreme A, calling it a miracle peptide, or dismissing the entire field. If you're enjoying this series, subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep exploring peptide medicine, longevity, metabolic health, and human performance while separating what we know from what we still need to discover. If this approach to medicine resonates with you and you'd like to explore working with me, visit www.mindbodyspirit-dpc.com to learn more about mind-body-spirit medicine and consider joining the practice. This video is provided for general education only. It does not constitute individualized medical advice or establish a physician-patient relationship. The evidence, safety, product quality, and regulatory status of peptide products vary substantially. Treatment decisions should be made with a qualified clinician who knows your medical history. I'm Dr. Kish Carlton. Stay curious, keep asking better questions, and click the next episode to continue the peptide series with me.